The war between humans and the Zareth alien empire had gone on for many years without rest. It had started so long ago that young soldiers did not even know how it began. Only the old commanders remembered the first attacks and the first battles, in deep space. Now every planet in the border zones was filled with signs of war. Broken cities, blackened battlefields, and empty homes showed the cost of the fighting. Aaron was a young soldier who had seen more battles than birthdays he had joined. The human space forces when he was very young, hoping to protect his home world. The training had been hard, but Aaron was strong and quick to learn. In his first year of service, he had fought in 4 campaigns on cold moons and dry deserts. Now he was part of a small squad known for taking dangerous missions behind enemy lines. One day, the human command sent orders for a new mission. A Zareth base had been found hidden inside the cliffs of a remote planet. This base was believed to hold important information about alien fleet movements. Aaron and his squad were told to enter the base quietly, gather the data, and leave before the aliens noticed. It sounded simple, but Aaron knew it was never simple in war. The squad traveled in a small stealth ship through dark space. They landed far from the alien base and walked for hours across rocky ground. The night sky above them was filled with strange green lights from the planet's rings. The air was thin and dry, making it hard to breathe. They moved carefully, watching for alien patrols and hidden traps. As they reached the edge of the alien stronghold, the squad split into 2 groups. Aran and 2 others took the left path through a narrow canyon while the rest went right. The canyon walls were high and blocked, most of the moonlight making it feel like a cave. Every step echoed softly between the rocks. Aaron kept his weapon ready and his eyes open. Halfway through the canyon, they heard strange humming sounds ahead. A blue light began to glow from around the bend. They slowed their steps, moving quietly until they could see the source. 2 alien guards stood at a gate made of shimmering crystal. The guards were tall, with scaled skin that reflected the blue light. Their armor was covered in strange symbols, and they carried long silver spears that hummed with energy. Aaron signaled his team to stop and hide. They waited for the right moment, then moved forward quickly, hoping to take the guards by surprise. But before they could reach them, a loud alarm filled the air. From the cliffs above, bright lights flashed and more aliens appeared. Aaron fired at the lights while his team ran forward, but the path closed as crystal walls rose from the ground, blocking escape. More aliens surrounded them from every side. The squad fought hard, but they were outnumbered. One of Aaron's teammates shouted for him to run and get away, but Aaron refused to leave his friends behind. A strong blast of energy struck the ground near him, and the force knocked him off his feet. His weapon flew from his hands and slid far away. Before he could recover, 2 alien guards grabbed him by the arms. They spoke in a deep language he could not understand. He struggled, but their grip was like steel. They pulled him toward the gate of crystal and led him inside the base. Aran's heart pounded as he realized he had been captured alive. Inside the base, the air felt warmer, and the walls glowed softly with shifting colors. Strange machines lined the corridors, humming with power. The guards marched him past alien workers and soldiers who stopped to stare at the human prisoner. Some looked curious, while others looked angry. Aaron kept his head high, even though fear burned in his chest. They took him deep underground, where the corridors became wider and more richly decorated. The crystal walls shone brighter, and the air was filled with the smell of strange flowers. At last, they stopped in front of a great hall. 2 massive doors carved, with alien symbols, opened slowly with a deep rumble. The hall inside was like nothing Aaron had ever seen. Tall crystal pillars reached up into the shadows above. Streams of light flowed along the floor like rivers. At the far end of the hall, on a high platform, sat the ruler of the Zareth. She wore robes of silver and deep blue that shimmered as she moved. Her eyes glowed softly like twin stars, and her crown looked as if it was made from living light. Aaron knew at once this was the queen of the Zareth. The guards pushed him to his knees before her. The queen studied him in silence for a long moment. Her gaze was calm but powerful, as if she could see into his thoughts. Then she spoke in a clear voice that echoed in the hall. The words were in the alien language at first, but soon shifted into human speech as if translated by some hidden device. "You are not like the others," she said slowly. "You will listen to me, and you will understand why you are here." Aaron looked up confused, but unafraid. He did not know why the queen had kept him alive. He was ready for questions about human military plans or secret codes, but the next words she spoke were nothing he could have ever expected. "If you want peace between our people, you must marry me," the alien queen said. Aaron could not believe what he had just heard. The queen of the Zareth was asking him to marry her. It sounded like some kind of trap or strange joke, but her voice was serious, and her glowing eyes did not waver. He felt the eyes of the alien guards, watching him closely. Waiting to see his reaction, Aaron took a slow breath and spoke with care. "Why would you say such a thing?" he asked. "I am your enemy, and you have captured me. What possible reason could there be for this?" The queen stood from her throne and walked down the crystal steps toward him. Her silver-blue robes flowed like water, and the light from the pillars shimmered across her skin. When she stopped before him, she was taller than he had expected. There was a sense of great power in her presence, but also something calm and steady. Long ago, the queen said our people had a law that could end war without blood. If two great rivals were locked in endless battle, the ruler of one side could take a champion from the other side as their life partner. It was a way to bind two enemies into one family so they would no longer fight. This law has not been used for many lifetimes, but I believe it is the only way to save both our peoples. Now Aaron listened carefully, but suspicion still filled his mind. "You think by marrying me humans and Zareth will stop fighting?" he asked. "Why would anyone believe this would work? Because the people will see it as a bond stronger than any treaty." The queen replied, "They will know their ruler has joined with one of the enemy, and they will think twice before spilling more blood. They will see that the enemy is not a monster but a person. Peace will become possible." Aaron thought of the long years of fighting. He thought of the soldiers who would never return home. He thought of the empty cities and broken lands, but he also thought of his commanders on Earth who would never agree to such an idea. He felt trapped between two impossible choices. The queen seemed to sense his thoughts. "You have no reason to trust me," she said. "That is why I will give you a chance to decide. You will be free to walk within my city under guard. You will see my people and speak to them, and you will take part in trials that will show whether you have the courage and strength worthy of such a bond." Aaron frowned slightly. "Trials. What kind of trials? They are not meant to harm you." The queen answered. "They will test your courage, your skill, and your heart. Only if you pass will I speak again of this marriage. And only then will you have the right to choose freely." Aaron still did not trust her, but his mind was sharp. If he agreed to the trials, he might learn more about the alien base, and maybe even find a way to escape. He could send information back to human command. At the same time, he could see for himself if the queen was telling the truth about wanting peace. "All right," he said at last. "I will take your trials, but I will not promise anything else." The queen gave a slow nod. "Very well." She said, "You will begin tomorrow. Until then, you will stay in the guest wing of the palace under watch. Food and water will be given to you, and you will not be harmed." Two guards stepped forward and guided Aaron out of the hall. As they walked, he glanced. Back once at the queen, she had returned to her throne, but her eyes followed him with an unreadable expression. The guest wing of the palace was unlike anything Aaron had seen. The walls glowed softly in warm colors, and the floors were made of smooth stone that reflected light like glass. A wide window looked out over the alien city. From there, he could see tall crystal towers shining under the strange green sky. Alien airships drifted between them, and small market squares were full of movement. Aaron sat near the window for a long time thinking about what had just happened. The idea of marrying an alien queen felt unreal and impossible, but he could not ignore the chance that she might be sincere. If peace could be won without more fighting, was it not worth at least hearing her out? That night, Aaron could not sleep easily. Strange alien music echoed faintly through the palace halls. Soft scents of unknown flowers drifted in from the gardens outside. He kept thinking of the trials and what they might involve. Would they be simple games or deadly challenges? Would the queen keep her promise to let him choose freely in the end? When morning came, alien attendants brought him food, unlike anything he had tasted before. It was colorful and full of rich scents, yet somehow felt clean and light. He ate slowly while looking out over the waking city. The streets below filled with alien citizens going about their lives. Children with glowing eyes ran between the stalls and vendors called out in musical voices. Soon the guards returned to take him to the first trial. Aaron followed them through winding corridors and out into the heart of the city. Everywhere he walked, alien eyes turned toward him. Some were curious, some wary, and a few openly hostile. He kept his head high and his steps steady, refusing to look weak. At last they reached a vast courtyard where the ground was marked with shifting patterns of light. In the center stood the queen once again. "This is where your first trial will begin," she said. "Here you will face the test of the crystal maze." Aaron looked around and saw high walls of shimmering crystal, slowly rising from the ground, forming a labyrinth. The light within the crystal pulsed gently as if alive. The queen's voice rang clear across the courtyard. "Find the heart of the maze and claim the stone that waits there. Only then will you have passed your first trial." Aaron stepped forward without hesitation. Whatever happened next, he knew there was no turning back now. The walls of the crystal maze closed around Aaron as soon as he stepped inside. They rose high above his head, glowing with soft blue and green light that shifted and shimmered. The air inside was cool and carried a faint hum as if the crystals were alive. Aaron could no longer see the queen or the guards outside, only the twisting passages ahead of him. He began to walk slowly, keeping one hand close to the wall to guide himself. The ground beneath his boots felt smooth and cold, and his footsteps echoed faintly. Every few steps, the light in the crystal would change from blue to green and back again, casting strange shadows across the floor. It was easy to feel lost, even after only a short distance. The first turn brought him to a long, straight corridor, but halfway down the walls shifted with a low grinding sound. The path ahead closed and a new path opened to his right. Aaron realized the maze was not fixed. It was moving and changing around him. This would make finding the heart much harder. Kept moving carefully, turning whenever the path allowed. Sometimes he reached a dead end and had to turn back. Once he thought he saw a faint figure moving through the maze, but when he hurried toward it, the figure vanished. The hum in the air grew, louder as he went, deeper, and he felt as if unseen eyes were watching him. After a while, Aaron reached a chamber where the crystal walls were clear instead of glowing. Through the clear crystal, he could see a small, floating light drifting slowly away. It looked like it was leading him somewhere. Aaron decided to follow it, keeping his pace steady but quick. The light guided him through narrow, twisting paths and sudden, wide spaces. Several times the walls shifted and tried to cut him off, but he pushed forward. At one turn, the floor itself moved like a slow wave under his feet, forcing him to balance carefully. He realized this was not just a maze of walls, but a living puzzle testing every part of his focus. Then came the first real danger. A strange sound echoed from behind him like sharp glass cracking. He turned and saw a part of the crystal wall breaking apart. From the opening stepped a creature unlike anything he had seen before. It had a long, thin body made of dark stone with glowing cracks. Along its sides, its eyes burned with bright yellow light, and it moved quickly toward him with a scraping noise. Aaron stepped back and raised his hands, ready to defend himself. The creature lunged, but he rolled to the side and kept running. It followed him closely, its movements sharp and quick. Aaron realized the maze was testing not only his mind, but his speed and courage as well. He ran through 2 turns and ducked into a narrow passage. The creature tried to follow, but its body scraped against. The walls slowing it down, Aaron used the moment to gain distance and keep following the floating light. Soon the sounds of pursuit faded behind him. At last he reached the center of the maze. It was a wide-open chamber with walls that glowed bright white. In the middle stood a tall pedestal of crystal, and on top of it rested a smooth, round stone that shimmered with rainbow colors. Aaron stepped forward and reached for the stone. The moment his fingers touched it, the hum of the maze grew into a deep, steady tone, and the walls around the chamber began to shift again. A path opened directly in front of him, leading straight out of the maze. The floating light circled him once, as if in approval, before vanishing into the air. Aaron followed the new path, and within minutes stepped out into the courtyard again. The queen stood waiting. Her eyes studied him closely as he placed the stone in her hands. "You have passed the first trial," she said in a calm voice. "Few outsiders have ever done so, and none with such speed." The people who had gathered to watch began to murmur among themselves. Some looked surprised, while others looked impressed. Aaron did not smile, but inside he felt a quiet pride. The maze had tried to break his focus and test his courage, but he had succeeded. Still, he knew the trials were far from over. The queen turned and gestured to the guards. "Take him to the place of rest," she said. "He will begin the second trial tomorrow." As the guards led Aaron back through the streets, he could feel the eyes of many aliens upon him. Some of them nodded slightly in silent respect. Others whispered to each other while glancing in his direction. Aaron wondered if perhaps he was already beginning to change the way some Zareth saw humans. That night in his guest chamber, he sat by the window again. The city glowed softly in the green sky, and airships drifted silently between towers. He thought of the creature in the maze and the strange living walls. He thought of how the queen had looked at him with a mix of approval and curiosity, and he thought about what might come next. The second trial was still a mystery, but Aaron knew it would be no easier than the first. If he was to pass all of them, he would need to be ready, in mind and body. Yet part of him also wanted to see more of this alien world. The markets, the gardens, the strange music in the night. Perhaps through these trials he would understand the queen and her people better. As the night deepened, Aaron made a silent promise to himself he would face every challenge without fear, and when the time came to choose, he would decide with both his heart and his duty in mind. Morning came slowly to the alien city, with the green light of the sky spilling over the crystal towers. Aaron rose early and prepared himself for whatever the second trial might be. The attendants brought him a plain but strong tunic made of alien fabric that felt light yet sturdy. He dressed quickly and waited until the guards arrived to lead him once more through the palace halls. They passed tall windows showing the city below. From above, Aaron could see the busy market streets where alien merchants were setting out strange fruits and shining objects. Airships moved between towers like silver birds, while small gliders circled high in the misty air. It was a peaceful scene. Yet Iran knew it could change into battle in a heartbeat. The guards brought him into a great hall where the queen stood near a wide circular table. Around the table were seated alien generals and advisors, their robes marked with symbols of rank. On the table lay a map made from glowing threads of light showing planets, moons, and lines of travel between them. The queen raised her hand for silence and spoke clearly so that all could hear. "Your second trial is the trial of the mind," she said. "You will face one of our greatest warlords in a contest of strategy. This will test not your strength, but your ability to think and plan. If you wish to stand beside me as a partner, you must show that you can guide more than your own steps." Aaron felt a quiet tension in the hall. He had trained in tactics during his military service, but he knew nothing of alien strategies. Still, he nodded calmly and stepped forward. The warlord chosen to face him rose from the far side of the table. It was a tall Zareth male with scaled armor and sharp, bright eyes that studied Aaron like a hawk studying its prey. The warlord gave a short bow, then began to arrange pieces on the map. Each piece was shaped like a small crystal tower or a sleek starship. The rules were explained quickly. Each player would take turns moving their pieces across the map. The goal was to protect one's home base while capturing the enemy's command center. The challenge was that the map could change during the game as new paths and hazards appeared. The first moves were slow as both sides tested the other's thinking. Aaron moved his ships along wide, safe paths, while the warlord sent scouts through narrow routes. After a few turns, the map shimmered and a new asteroid belt appeared, blocking some of Aaron's paths. He adjusted quickly, sending his fastest ships around the edge to probe for weak points. The warlord was skilled and set clever traps. Two of Aaron's ships were caught in a crossfire and removed from the game, but Aaron studied the warlord's movements carefully and noticed he was leaving a certain area lightly guarded. Aaron began shifting his forces in that direction while pretending to attack elsewhere. The map shifted again, bringing a swirling storm into play that blocked several routes. Using the chaos, Aaron pushed his main fleet through the weak point. The warlord saw the danger too late. Aaron's ships reached the enemy command center and claimed it for victory. There was a moment of silence in the hall. Then several of the generals murmured in surprise, while others nodded in approval. The warlord gave Aaron a respectful bow, acknowledging his skill. The queen smiled faintly and said, "You have passed the second trial, and you have shown the mind of a leader. But your journey is not yet complete tomorrow. You will face the third and final trial. Only then will you have earned the right to choose." Aaron was led away once more through the streets, but this time something felt different. The alien citizens who saw him no longer looked at him only with suspicion. Some gave small nods or even brief smiles as he passed. It was as if each trial was not only proving his worth to the queen, but also to the people themselves. That night, Aaron sat near the palace gardens, where crystal flowers opened under the glow of the green sky. Strange winged creatures with soft lights in their bodies drifted among the blooms. He thought about the third trial and what it could be. If the first had tested his courage, and the second his mind, then perhaps the last would test his heart. The next morning came with a soft wind blowing through the palace corridors. The guards arrived early and led him beyond the main gates into the wild lands outside the city. The ground here was sandy and dry with long ridges of rock rising from the earth. In the distance, Aaron saw the glimmer of sunlight on the shifting surface of a vast desert. The queen met him at the edge of the desert, surrounded by a small group of soldiers. Her expression was calm, but her voice was firm. "Your final trial is to bring back the young one who was taken into the desert yesterday," She said, "The desert is the hunting ground of the great sand beasts, and none who wander there without care return alive. If you succeed, you will not only prove your bravery, but also your compassion." Aaron listened closely. This was not a test against another warrior or a puzzle to be solved on a table. This was real and dangerous, and someone's life was in his hands. He took a pack of supplies from one of the soldiers and stepped forward without hesitation. The heat of the desert struck him as soon as he entered. The sand reflected the light into his eyes, and the air shimmered with waves of heat. He moved carefully, watching for any sign of movement beneath the sand. More than once he saw strange ripples passing near his path and heard deep rumbling sounds far below. Hours passed as Aaron searched. He found broken pieces of a small transport and traces of footprints leading toward the high dunes. Following them, he climbed slowly to the top of a ridge. From there, he saw a small figure in the distance, waving weakly before collapsing. Aaron ran down the slope, but a sudden roar shook the ground. A massive shape burst from the sand between him and the child. It was a sand beast with a long armored body and jaws wide enough to swallow him whole. The creature's yellow eyes locked on him as it let out another roar. Aaron knew he could not fight it directly, so he used the terrain. He ran sideways across the slope, kicking up clouds of sand to confuse the beast. When it lunged toward him, he dodged sharply to the side and slid down into a narrow ravine. The beast followed, but its large body became wedged between the rocks. Aaron wasted no time and ran past it toward the child. He reached the young one, a small Zareth child trembling and weak from heat. Lifting the child into his arms, Aaron turned back toward the city. The journey was slow and the sun seemed to press down like a heavy weight. But at last the crystal towers of the city came into view and the gates opened before him. The queen was waiting. When Aaron placed the child safely in her arms, a ripple of relief and pride passed through the crowd. "You have passed the final trial," she said in a clear voice. "Now you have the right to choose." The return from the desert was not only a victory for Aaron, but also a moment that touched the hearts of many in the alien city. News of how he had saved the young one from the great sand beast spread quickly through the streets and markets. The people whispered his name with respect, and some even began to call him the Protector. For the first time, Aaron felt that the eyes watching him in the city were not only full of suspicion, but also of trust. That evening, the queen invited him to the palace gardens. The air was soft with the scent of crystal flowers, and the green light from the sky bathed everything in a calm glow. Small glowing insects drifted between the plants, casting moving lights over the paths. The sound of water trickling from a tall fountain filled the space with a peaceful rhythm. The queen stood near the fountain dressed in a simple robe instead of her royal attire. It was the first time Aaron had seen her without the crown and heavy robes, and she seemed less like a distant ruler and more like a person. She motioned for him to walk with her along the garden paths. "You have passed the trials," she said in a quiet voice. "Each one was meant to show me who you are, and each one you have faced with strength and honor. Now the choice lies with you. But before you decide, I wish you to understand my people." Aaron walked beside her as she spoke. She told him of the history of the Zareth, how they had once been a united empire of many worlds, bound by a shared belief in harmony. But over the centuries, fear and ambition had turned them toward conquest. The war with humans had begun when both sides reached the same border worlds and refused to share. Skirmishes became battles, and battles became endless. War as they moved deeper into the garden. The queen paused to watch a pair of alien children chasing glowing insects between the flowers. "Many of my people do not even remember why the war began," she said. "They only know the hatred passed down from their elders. I wish to end this, before another generation grows up knowing nothing but battle. Aran listened carefully. He thought about the soldiers he had known who had fallen in combat. He thought about the families who waited for news that never came. He thought about his own world and how tired it had become of sending sons and daughters to fight on distant planets. The queen turned to him with a steady gaze. "That is why I made the offer to you," she said. "Not because it is easy, but because it is the only path I see that could bind our peoples together. I do not ask you to give up who you are. I ask you to join me so that we can give our people a future without war." They stopped at a high terrace overlooking the city. From here, the crystal towers glimmered like starlight, and the green sky seemed endless. The sounds of the city below were soft and far away, carried on the wind. Aaron thought about the trials again. In the maze, he had been tested for courage. In the war game, he had shown his mind. In the desert, he had proven his heart. Each trial had not only tested him, but had also shown him something about the Zareth. They were not all the same as the warriors who had fought him on the battlefield. Many were builders, merchants, healers, and children, who wanted only to live their lives in peace. That night in his guest chamber, Aaron sat by the window as he often did, but this time his thoughts were less about escape and more about possibility. He imagined what it would mean if humans and Zareth stood together instead of apart. Trade could replace raids, shared learning could replace stolen secrets, the border worlds could be open instead of battlegrounds. In the following days, the queen kept her word and allowed him to walk freely in the city with only a few guards. He visited the market where alien merchants offered him strange fruits and crafted ornaments made from crystal. He saw schools where young Zareth learned history and science. He visited workshops where engineers shaped crystal into tools and machines that pulsed with inner light. In each place, he met people who spoke to him not as an enemy, but as a guest. Some told him they hoped he would stay and help guide their future. Others simply thanked him for saving the child in the desert. These moments touched him in ways the trials never could, because they showed him the true heart of the people he had once called enemies one afternoon. As he crossed the great plaza, he saw the child he had rescued playing with friends. The child ran to him and offered him a small crystal shaped like a star. "For you," the child said in a soft voice. "It will remind you that you are welcome here." Aaron accepted it with a quiet nod, feeling a warmth in his chest that surprised him. That evening, the queen called him to the great hall once again. The pillars glowed softly, and the hall was quiet, except for the sound of their footsteps. She stood at the base of her throne, not on it as before. "You have seen my people," she said. "You have seen our life beyond the war. Now you must decide." Aaron looked at her and felt the weight of the moment. This was not only a personal choice, but a choice that could shape the fate of two civilizations. He thought of his commanders who would never approve. He thought of the soldiers on both sides who would not understand. But he also thought of the hope he had seen in the eyes of the people here, and the peace that could be born from unity. "I have not yet given you my answer," he said quietly. "But I know now that your offer is not a trick. It is real, and it is for the good of all." The queen inclined her head. "When you are ready, speak your choice before the people." She said they will hear it, and they will remember it. Aaron left the hall that night with the small crystal star still in his pocket. He could feel its weight as he walked through the silent palace corridors. Whatever he chose, he knew his life, and the life of the galaxy would never be the same. The day came when Aaron had to face the people of both worlds. The great crystal hall was filled with an audience unlike any he had seen before. Humans in their simple uniforms stood on one side, their faces tired but hopeful. Zareth aliens stood on the other side, their glowing eyes full of curiosity and caution. The queen sat on her throne at the center, her presence calm but commanding. She gave Aaron a small nod, signaling him to speak. Aaron took a deep breath and stepped forward. He looked at the crowd and saw not enemies, but many who longed for peace. His voice was clear and strong as he began. I have come from a world of war and pain. I have seen the cost of endless fighting, but I have also seen courage and hope in the hearts of many. The queen offered a way to end this war not with more blood, but with unity. She asked me to join her in marriage to bind our peoples together. There are those who say this cannot work. They say that humans and Zareth are too different to share a future. But I believe that strength comes from understanding. That peace is born when we choose to see each other as family. The hall was silent. Then a murmur ran through the crowd. Some humans whispered doubts. Some aliens nodded slowly in approval. The queen rose and spoke. This union is not the end, but the beginning, a symbol of hope and trust, a promise that our two peoples will walk forward together. I ask you all to give us this chance. Suddenly, a group of human officers stepped forward. Their faces stern and cold. They handed Aaron a sealed message. It was an order from Earth Command. They demanded that he reject the Queen's offer and return immediately. They warned that any alliance with the aliens was dangerous and could betray human interests. Aaron felt the weight of the message heavy on his shoulders. He knew that if he obeyed Earth Command, he would lose the trust of the Queen and the Zareth people. If he refused, he risked being branded a traitor to his own kind. A tense silence filled the hall as Aaron looked from the Queen to the officers and back again. He could feel the eyes of both peoples waiting for his answer. In that moment, he thought of the trials he had faced, the maze where courage was tested, the war game where minds clashed, the desert where compassion was proven. He thought of the child he had saved and the people who had welcomed him. He thought of the hope he had found in the Queen's eyes and in his own heart. Then he made his choice. He stepped forward and spoke with quiet strength. I will marry the Queen to bring peace between our peoples. I choose hope over fear. I choose unity over war. Let this be the new path for all of us. A wave of surprise swept through the hall. Some gasped in shock. Others smiled with relief. The Queen stepped down and took Aaron's hand. The crowd slowly began to cheer. Voices from both sides joined in a sound that was almost like music. The decision was made, but the road ahead was still long. Aaron knew that many would not accept this union easily. There would be challenges from leaders and soldiers who feared change, but for the first time in many years, a true chance for peace had been born. That night, Aaron and the Queen spoke quietly in her private chambers. They talked about the future and the work needed to build trust between their worlds. They shared stories of their lives, their hopes, and their fears. Though they were from different worlds, they found common ground in their desire to protect their people. As the stars shone outside the palace windows, Aaron felt a calm he had never known before. He was no longer just a soldier caught in a war. He was a bridge between two worlds, and with that came both great responsibility and great hope. The day of the wedding arrived under the soft green light of the alien sky. The great crystal hall was filled with light and sound. Humans and Zareth gathered together for the first time without weapons or armor. The air was full of hope and quiet, excitement. Aaron stood beside Queen Serena, dressed in simple clothes that blended the styles of both their worlds. He felt the eyes of the crowd on him, but his heart was calm and steady. The Queen's glowing eyes met his, and she gave a small smile, full of warmth and trust. The ceremony was unlike any Aaron had seen. No words were spoken that he understood completely, but the meaning was clear. The joining of two souls and the promise to lead their people toward peace and unity. light flowed from the queen's crown, and from the stone Aaron wore on a chain around his neck. The lights danced together and filled the hall with soft colors. As the ceremony ended, the crowd rose and cheered, voices from both humans, and Zareth joined in a single sound of joy. Old enemies stood side by side, sharing smiles and hopes for the future. For the first time in many years, the war seemed to fade away. After the ceremony, Aaron and Serena walked through the city together. Citizens reached out to touch their hands and offer gifts. Children followed them, laughing and playing. Traders offered food and crafts from both worlds. It was a celebration of new beginnings. Days turned into weeks, and the peace between humans and Zareth grew stronger. Trade. Ships moved freely between planets, bringing goods and knowledge. Scientists and engineers from both sides worked together, creating new machines and technologies. Cultural exchanges brought music and art that blended human and alien traditions. Aaron found himself no longer just a soldier, but a leader and a symbol. He worked with the Queen to build councils and forums where people could speak and be heard. He traveled to human worlds to explain the peace and invite others to join his voice. Became one of hope and reason in a galaxy long divided. Still, challenges remained. There were those who doubted and resisted the change. Some attacks continued on border planets by groups who did not want peace. But Aaron and Serena faced these challenges. With patience and strength, their marriage was a bond that could not be broken by fear or hate. One evening, Aaron stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The crystal towers glowed softly under the stars and the green sky. He held the small crystal star the child had given him months before. It reminded him of the long journey from war to hope. The galaxy was not yet free from danger or pain, but the path had changed. Humans and Zareth now walked it together. A new dawn had come. Aaron smiled quietly, knowing that peace was not just a dream, but a future they could build together. With courage, trust, and love, the impossible had become real.